But all right. So we're here to learn about middle of the funnel email marketing with Jason Resnick. Jason is a, believe it or not, recovering web developer. And as part of his recovery, he has turned to email marketing and especially email automation. And so, Jason, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say to us today. And I'm going to leave it to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, David, for having me here. As David mentioned, I am a recovering web developer. And what that really means is I don't do web development work for my clients anymore, mainly because I fell in love with email. Um, I, if I had entrance music, it would be New York related as well, right? Because I am a New Yorker, which really means that I'm going to talk fast, and I might be blunt in some occasions, make some assumptions, which I'll all go into. But in and of itself, I want to make sure that you walk away with any answers to questions that you might have. So I'm going to leave time at the end. Feel free to drop the questions that you have in the chat. We'll go through them. Or if something comes up after the presentation, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at Res on Twitter, or you can find me at nurturekit.co. Those are the best places for us to learn a little bit more about each other. So what I'm going to talk to you today is, like I said, about email and New York. Two things that I absolutely love. And if you're like most people, when you hear New York, you think of things like the subway, or maybe greasy pizza, maybe 7 dozen bagels. You might also think about guys in suits, and those guys are always in a rush to just about everywhere. And New Yorkers are also very opinionated about everything, including their sports teams. And want you to take a mental snapshot of this, because I'm going to show you something a little funny in a moment here. But New Yorkers are also pretty rude. And if you're not from the city, or you're not from in and around New York City, what you see here is this gentleman walking in the bike lane, looking down at his phone, obviously not paying attention to what's around him, but the biker is coming by and throwing him an elbow. So yeah, that's New York. New York is impersonal, and some New Yorkers curse like every 4 seconds, and we'll give this guy a pass even though he's from Jersey. See, those people exist. That New York exists. And quite frankly, sometimes I'm that New Yorker, and I love it. I'm from here. I love New York, but I also love email. See, email has enabled me to design a business around the life that I want to live. I don't have to make any sort of cold calls. I don't have to attend local business meetups, or, you know, things at the local Elks Lodge or Chamber of Commerce meetings. I don't have to do the expected traditional kinds of sales processes that, well, most small businesses are almost expected to do. And I've never run ads before. See this picture? I'm a diehard Met fan. My wife is a diehard Yankee fan. So that I'm with stupid thing, yeah, summertime is fun in our house. Um, so I told you about New York in one hand, and I told you about email in the other. And what I want to do is I actually want to bring those two together for you today. See, my observation is that most people, most small businesses, most online businesses use email much like a New Yorker: rushed, impersonal, filled with stress, rude, basically bludgeoning people over the head just to make a sale, when what we actually have to do is the inverse. So if our perception of New York is rush, impersonal, and rude, it's my contention that we do the complete opposite approach when it comes to email. See, doing that is one of the best ways that you could build a business that never has to rely on ads, that never has to make a cold call, that never has to wonder about, hey, where's that next lead coming from? You don't have to worry about that feast or famine or the ups and downs of the business world. And I know this because I've spent the better part of the past 12 plus years perfecting this with my clients while not ever having to spend one single dollar on ads. But it didn't start there. See, in about 2015-ish, in my inbox, there was a single email that had 3 words to it. And it was in reply to a newsletter that I was really just sending to about 50 people at the time. And that email said, "We're ready now." See, all I was doing with my newsletter at that time, there was really no strategy to it other than sharing interesting articles that I was reading, sharing some of the things I was doing for clients, some of their stories, some of their wins, some of their problems. This reply, though, landed on the desk of a lost lead, right, that I hadn't spoken to in probably well over a year. And they basically said that they're ready. And when we first spoke a year prior to that, in their words, I looked it up in my CRM, they said they ducks weren't in a row. So they felt that they weren't ready for what I could help them with. Now, at this time, we then hopped on the phone, and as a result of that conversation, they became a long-time client of mine with several one-off projects underneath our belt, several retainers over the course of probably now a couple of years, that really brought in just as one client over 6 figures alone. See, you just need a simple email strategy when it comes to your business that is going to unlock your goals as well as your clients' goals. See, this simple email strategy is a salesperson campaign. Now, before you get all cringy about salesperson or salespeople or salesmen or whatever the case, the negative connotation around that is, I want to take this idea of a salesperson campaign and want you to kind of turn the page on that. I want you to think about in the middle of the funnel, right? Not somebody who's found you for the first time, not somebody that has, opted into your brand new lead magnet or video or read your latest blog post and thought all of the exciting things that you have for them, they're ready to consume. This is the person that is sitting, in your list, getting your weekly updates and things of that nature, right? See, this salesperson campaign is basically a sequence of emails designed to reach multiple subscribers, right? If we break apart the 2 words of the campaign here, the salesperson campaign here, and we talk just about a campaign, it is just that. It is that sequence, right? It's a marketing effort that is designed to generate revenue. And it has a very specific goal in mind, right? So it might not even be generating revenue directly, but it might be getting people on a call with you or into a webinar or something of that nature. And the beautiful part about campaigns are they're on autopilot. Now, if we take a salesperson and define that, I found this definition a number of years ago, and it really unlocked it for me. And the definition is a salesperson is an ambassador of their company to the external world. See, all they're really trying to do is sell products and services in a helpful way to customers. And above any other skill, a salesperson needs great human relation skills. Now, if we combine those 2 words together, we get a salesperson campaign. You can build up a sequence of emails that basically appears right when that lead is most likely to buy. And we'll get into how to identify that in a moment. But what you want to do with this campaign, it's not just, hey, come check out my thing, and here's the latest questions that I got, and here's testimonials of 47 different people that have bought from me. This is giving subscribers more. It answers objections. It gives them key testimonials that are relatable to them. It ultimately makes subscribers easy to buy. There's no false sense of urgency or scarcity in this. It really just does do that. It helps the subscriber, your email subscriber, to making the buying decision. Now, what you see here is a salesperson campaign, and you can see it's only about 500, 600 sends. And yes, it tails off because people buy in the middle and they get removed. So the bottom email isn't going to get as much as the top. But you can see that this campaign in and of itself in 12 months netted 6 figures, right? So you don't need a huge, massive list for this. See, the benefits, and I apologize if you hear sawing or cutting or any sort of construction in the background. I will try to talk over them. So I apologize in advance of that. The benefits of a salesperson campaign are that it's a chance to personalize the campaign, right? So as I said, if you look at a TV in Best Buy, for any length of time, a salesperson is going to come up to you and talk to you about it. They're going to ask, what room of the house is this going into? What kind of TV do you watch? Do you watch movies? Like all of these personal questions that aren't on the little card with the price. This is what you want to do based off of what you have learned about your email subscriber. It deepens the trust and the personal relationship that you have with all of your subscribers. You'll stand out from the crowd as well, because over the course of my career, I've been trying to see how other agencies, how other client service businesses, and even just online businesses do this. And not many are doing it. In fact, I can name one, and that's Amazon. You can maximize your revenue opportunities because once you build one for one product and or service, you could build one for all of your products, right? So you build for every product you have, you can have a salesperson campaign for it. And look, it's on autopilot, right? What we're really talking about here is a purchase-based interest campaign, which is a real big fancy marketing term for hand raising, right? We have all experienced it. If you think about shopping cart abandonment, this is one of those kind of campaigns, right? Where somebody visits the sales page multiple times, they don't purchase. Well, you're going to get that email, right? If you're on their list, Amazon does a great job at this. I can't leave anything in the cart for longer than 5 minutes in Amazon before I start getting emails all over the place. But the thing with online businesses, especially services, a lot of times we might not even have a sales page, right? It might be a booking link. It might be something else, piece of content that's related to the service that we offer. It could be a client testimonial video or something of that nature. What we're really trying to do here is start to tally those things, those clicks, because what happens is something ultimately stopped them, and we don't want to let them go, right? It could be your kid grabbed them, maybe construction on a house, something like that. But we don't want to let them go, because what happens is consumers buy on emotion and justify with logic. And what that means is that when you're reading an email, you are inside of your inbox, right? There's words on a white screen. Sometimes there might be a logo or anything, but it's your personal space. You're looking at the words on the screen, imagining it. You start to feel a connection with the writer. Then all of a sudden, that connection breaks when you click the link, because now you're leaving your personal area for that business's personal space, right? Their logo, their colors, their price, their website, right? All of the things happen now in their benefit, not yours. And naturally, your brain starts to put in defense mechanisms and starts thinking about, do we really need this thing? Do I have the time to book this call? Do I want to spend? Do I even have the resources for all of this kind of stuff? So what we want to do is we want to marry those things. We want to bring them together because ultimately the sale is made with a handshake. This handshake is the action. What we're going to do is track that action of the subscriber that expresses interest, right? And you can, depending on your platform, it's called a link trigger or a trigger link, depends on what it is. But basically what you want to do is track that click and then tie that tracking to the inaction of not buying, right? So however you tie purchases up with your email platform, you want to see, hey, in an hour, in a day, did they buy? Did they book that call? If they didn't do that, that's when the salesperson campaign kicks in. We want to meet them where they're at and add a personal touch because now we know exactly where they are. We know their mindset. Hey, they were interested enough to click the link, but what happened? What stopped? Where are they going? So I want to talk to you about the sales campaign. So this is what you're going to put into this sequence of emails. The first email is specifying. You want to call it out. You want to go deeper into why this product or service or program exists, right? And you want to call it out in a way, to be quite frank, to be very blunt. I have a sentence in one of mine that basically says, hey, my system tells me that you've checked this thing out several times. Just wanted to open up the line of communication to find out why you haven't bought, right? Don't be creepy, right? They know they've looked at the product, sometimes several times. You know they've looked at it. Let's just have the conversation about it, right? I can't tell you how many times I have an Echo show in my living room, and my wife and I are talking about salmon recipes or dinner or going out to a restaurant or something like that. And then the Echo show, we didn't ask it anything, but then the show shows us like, hey, top salmon recipes or related restaurants in the local area. So it's like, it's very creepy, right? You don't want to be like that. You want to actually land in their inbox, leveling the playing field. The next email that goes out is telling us a story of the transformation that as it relates to the subscriber themselves, right? It's associating now the product. You want to use words like imagine, right? That's a powerful word because if I say imagine a pink elephant, your brain can't not think about a pink elephant. So you want to start to tell the story of the transformation as it relates to the subscribers. So if you know that they've are a lost lead, like in my previous story about the one that sent the email, I knew that they weren't ready. They didn't have the ducks in a row. So they were premature for the services that I offer. So my salesperson campaign can talk to that because I've marked that individual subscriber as that's why I didn't have the sale in the first place, right? So we can go deeper with that. You want to now also link why your product, course, program, service is made from your perspective, right? Why did you create this thing? Why are you doing this thing? It could be your mission. It could be solving your own problems, right? Use feelings and results, right? Bring your own personal story to the conversation. You want to use emotion and empathy as well, because now they've seen your thing. It could be, upwards of 5, 7, 10 times now, right? By the time they get this fourth email. So they're starting to think, hey, maybe this is just too much for me. Maybe, Jason is overkill for me, right? So you want to bring it back down to earth. Bring it back down that you don't have all the answers, but you do know this one thing, right? This is why this product exists. And then finally, you want to share another story, right? You want to show them that you understand where they are. If they've gone this deep with you, they're probably really on the fence. They might be comparing you to one or two other people or things. And if you know what those are, call them out in this email, right? Really surprise people. If you call out something that they're already looking at, it also shows that, and by calling out, I don't mean that you have to say that you're better than them, but you could contrast the two, right? Let them make that buying decision for themselves. And it really hits home because then they're like, oh, geez, this is like they're reading my mind. How do they know this, right? It's because you understand your customer. So some of the best practices that I want to share with you are you want to write it very conversationally, right? Lay off the graphics, lay off the heavy design. You want to make sure that you're straightforward and not creepy, like I said. You don't want to show up in the inbox just talking about the thing and not addressing how you got there in the first place. Every single email is a single call to action. Don't link off to your blog. Don't link off to an article or a podcast or a video or something of that nature. That single call to action should either be the sales page or the checkout page or the booking link, your calendar, right? It should be the exact single thing that you want them to do. You want to showcase your authority, your testimonials, your expertise. When it comes to testimonials, if you can align the testimonials, if you're in a certain industry, like my industry, like I work with a lot of course creators and membership website owners. If I know that this is a membership website owner because of survey data or whatnot, then I want to put testimonials in place that are from other membership website owners, right? If you can share objections from clients on why they, what they thought about before buying, but then got this result, those are powerful because especially if the objections align, right? Like, I don't have time for this. Well, Mary said that she didn't have time or the resources to do this stuff, but Jason took care of everything and it was minimal lift on Mary's side, right? Those kind of one-line testimonials go a long way. And depending on the type of product or campaign that you're running, 4 to 6 emails is kind of the sweet spot. Now, drop it in the chat. How often are you sending emails today per month? How many emails do you send per month? I'm just going to take a sip of water. I'm kind of curious. Monthly, weekly. I send daily. See, what's great, if you're already sending emails, you're already doing the hard thing. You can set this up and just keep doing what you're doing. What I encourage you to do is keep at it, but be intentional, not of the moment. And what I mean by that is I know when I just was like, hey, I got to send a weekly email. Tuesday is my day. I need to show up in the inbox on Tuesday. Sometimes I would just sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to write about this today. Done, right? Instead, what you want to do is you want to share content in the email that then lends itself as a stepping stone to your salesperson campaign. Right? So if I know that I'm going to send them to my book a day service, right? I want that to be triggered off. I want to give the people that are reading this piece of content, those ideal people for this service, I want them to click on the link to that service, right? Be real intentional about the content. Not saying that you have to be salesy about it, but make sure that the content aligns with those products. See, I was born in the late 70s. A-Team was a thing that I watched, but I love when a plan comes together because when you keep doing what you're doing, when you're intentional about the content you're sharing and you have a salesperson campaign set up, it becomes super like easy. It's natural for your subscribers to find themselves into the salesperson campaign. It can happen on a Tuesday afternoon. It can happen on a Saturday morning. Any given day, when they click on that link, They can drop into a salesperson campaign, and that lead generation for that hot lead starts to do the work, right? You start to move that hot lead into becoming a customer, and it starts to create sustainability for your business because you're not thinking, okay, this email I'm sending out this week goes out on Tuesday. Okay, this is it. I got to have this link in here, and by Wednesday, that's it. That's not the case. When you have a salesperson campaign waiting in the wings, now you have emails going out. This can happen at any point in time, right? It also keeps you straight on your content, right? Focused on sharing the content that is directly aligned with your products and services, right? Because I'm not going to share an email about Bard, Google's Bard AI product, because it doesn't help me. It doesn't point any of my subscribers in the direction of any of my products. But I'm going to talk about segmentation, personalization, automation, strategies around email. And if Bard AI comes into the mix, that's great. But the ultimate CTA is for me to get them to click on something that is related to my services. Now, the tactic for your regular emails, right? Monthly, weekly. Jackie just says none yet, just getting started, but we do monthly. Look, if you are already sending regularly, keep doing so. Be consistent. Show up in the inbox when you say you're going to show up in the inbox. But I would encourage you to try to increase it, right? So if you're writing monthly, step it up to weekly. To be quite frank, if you are in the B2B space, you probably should be at a minimum doing weekly. Just the New Yorkers coming out at me here, that's just real talk. So if you can, ramp that up to weekly. If you are doing weekly, see if you can get it to 2 or 3 times a week. And if you're doing it 2 or 3 times a week, then go daily, right? But be consistent. Don't do a sprint and then go dark for a month. Like, be consistent. You want to be intentional. I can't stress that enough about the content, about the lessons, about, even if it's other people's content, if it centers around something that you do, then talk about it. This also gives you the opportunity to mix up your CTAs or your calls to actions, right? If you normally do buttons for people to click on, see if you mix up a text link or two, right? Inline or on its own line. Test. It gives you these opportunities to see what resonates with your audience, right? I know for my audience, text links works best. Why? I don't know. It's just when I put out an email and I have text links, those get clicked on. Buttons don't get clicked on as much. It could be because I have a list of marketers, so they know a button usually means closer to a sale, I guess. But you test these things, and then when you want to run a promotion, then you have the data from these tests to go forth with. Like I said, you can adapt that with the launches. Now, some of the content is, how you want to share it depends on the audience. But what I've found over the past 2 years is that you want to share not as much how to, right? How to it gives this like talking down to the individual, right? Like, I know what you should be doing. This is how you do it. Nobody likes to be told what they do. But if you say it's my experience. So how I do email marketing, right? This is what's worked for me in the past, might work for you. Personalized CTAs, bar none, work best. And what does that mean? Well, HubSpot ran a study of over 330,000 different call to actions in emails and found that over 200% better conversion on the personalized CTAs versus the standard. So what's that mean? Well, join 100 course creators in our cohort this month versus join our cohort this month, right? If I know that the individual is a course creator, then put that in the CTA. So as I mentioned before, everyone needs email help. And I know this because, like I said, I'm on a lot of lists. I get a lot of emails. My wife and looks at my phone and she's like, how do you have 1,100 unread messages? That's insane, right? It's because I just learn. I reverse engineer things. And so that's why I know that there's a lot of lists out there that could be doing a lot better, right? So for some of you, how can I help, right? Signing up for my email list might be sufficient, right? But I wanted to show up here as David invited me to help you even further, right? With whatever I can do, right? I want to be able to answer some questions. I want to be able to get you unstuck if you're already emailing. Jackie, you haven't even started yet. So, I have products around these things. I have free content. I have a YouTube channel, my email list. I want to be able to give you what you want. But before I do that, I just want to share one of my favorite email stories. In February 2020, a growth marketing firm called Common Thread Collective hired me. Growth marketing. So they know their thing, right? But like many, they provided services and digital products, included a membership as well. And they collected email addresses from the top of the funnel from all different angles: blog posts, ads, webinars and workshops that they ran, live events, everything, social. They had all of these various landing pages, but yet there was nothing along that naturally led those new email subscribers into becoming a customer. From time to time, they would shake things up and just blast out the list, and here, the membership's open, or here's a product that we have, or call our sales team, that kind of stuff. But over the course of the project, we wound up putting a salesperson campaign in place. We tweaked their regular email strategy. We played with some of the timings of their sales cycles, right? See, in the context of the project, their sales team admitted to me, with all of the things that they were doing at the top of the funnel, they felt they weren't busy enough. Like they were waiting for the phone calls, but that weren't coming. See, I didn't write a single email for them, but what I did was help them figure out their segmentation, figure out their timing, figure out the mechanisms at which people click on certain things that led to them becoming customers. Then after about a few months later, when the project was complete, I got pinged on Twitter from the VP of marketing. And he basically told me through that tweet that their investment was paid back in less than 1 month from the project that we worked on together. Within 3 months, they saw a lift of 780%. 780% of inbound leads. Now, if whatever your numbers are, if you just align 780%, what would that mean for you if you had that increase of work of inbound leads into your sales pipeline within 3 months? Now, just to be clear with all of this, your results may vary. Not saying that everybody's going to get this, but I just wanted to show you what's actually possible for people who take email seriously and have a plan that's a simple strategy and execute on that strategy. So let me leave you with this quick secret. This talk isn't just about email or New York. It's not even just about answering questions or objections and the desires of your subscribers. It's actually about the humans, the human behavior as a result of putting something valuable in front of those humans. And email isn't the only method at which we can achieve predictable and recurring income, but it's a way of being helpful when someone's ready to be helped. It's a way of building a business designed around the life that you want to live. It works for me. It's worked for my clients. And all I can say is when you treat your email lists like humans, amazing transformations happen. So feel free. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to jump into the questions. I'll stay for as long as I can. But yeah, let's you can hit me up on Res on Twitter, or you can go to nurturekit.co/fifth. I created a simple sort of discount on one of my leading products just for you guys here in attendance, or sign up to Evergreen, which is my newsletter.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. Um, I really appreciate it. If you want to see a live example of some of the things that Jason talks about, you can sign up for Curious Ants for free, and you can see the drip campaign, which I used based on what he did. Of course, I didn't do it nearly as well as he's going to teach you how to do it. So take advantage of his deal here and learn how to do it yourself. It's really great. And I really think that as I went through your system, Jason, you could really see this is definitely about a personal handshake. This is not about, some anonymous conversation and speaking to someone who doesn't want to hear what they want to hear. It's very much, and that's what I really like about the model that you're using. So thank you. I will say too that Jason's frequency of his emails, he practices what he preaches. And at first I thought, really, an email a day? But honestly, these emails I get, I'm like, oh, wait, I definitely need to make sure I read this. Like, don't just hit the delete button because another email. No, I definitely take time every day and take a look at it, because he's really practicing what he's preaching. He's really giving me value that's like, oh yeah. And I just have a folder of things saved. Like, oh, I totally can't forget this. I know I'm going to forget it. Like, so yes, he knows what he's talking about. So, but along those lines, Trisha asked you, I think, a question that I know I had when I got started. How do you come up with your consistent content, with such a consistent stream of content, Jason, without spending all your time working on it?
Yeah. Well, I started, like, as I said, when I started emailing, it was one-ish times a week. It was Tuesdays, sometimes on Fridays. That was very inconsistent, the Friday one. But as a result of working with clients, I saw the power of daily emails. I had several clients that were doing daily emails, and they were solo business owners, or maybe team of two. Um, I saw the impact that it not only had for their subscribers and how engaged they were, but how it impacted their business in the positive way. So I was like, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out how the heck, what am I going to talk about? Like every day? Like this is, I mean, Tuesdays is even hard. So what I wound up doing was really putting constraints around the time, right? Trisha, as you said, like without spending all my time. So I read Atomic Habits, and what James Clear said in the book was you basically create a framework around the habit that you want to, of the person that you want to be. So if you want to go to the gym, put the sneakers by the door, you'll see the sneakers, you'll at least go to the gym, right? I always had a cup of coffee every morning, always. There's no way that I'm not. So what I did was I'm writing my email for the first cup of coffee in the day. It's about 20 minutes. When I'm done with the coffee, I better press send. That was the constraint that I had. So imperfect actions, believe me, I want everything to be pixel perfect. But yes, links went out that were broken, typos happened, all the things, especially early on, right? But I was like, I want to show up daily because I know that this is the kind of person or business that I want to be. And this is where my main course of communication is going to be. And so I want to show up every day. And how do I do that? Well, a cup of coffee. And the other constraint was I only want this to be a 2 or 3 minute read time, because I knew that if people were on my list, they couldn't read this massive novel every day. There was no, one, I wasn't going to write it, and two, they weren't going to read it. So how can I do this in 2 minutes? Basically in 20 minutes, write this email and press send. So that was it. That's all I did. I knew the topics that I posted. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I know what resonates. I know the problems that I solve on a daily basis, the questions that I get asked, and all of the things. I have a YouTube channel, so the content's there. It's just a matter of how do I repurpose it? How do I say the same thing 1,000 times, right? And that's kind of what I started off with was, can I do this for 30 days? And I did it. I set that thing. At the end of 30 days, let me just see what happens. At the end of the 30 days, I saw engagement go up. I didn't know if I was going to burn my list. A whole bunch of people unsubscribed, maybe, I didn't, but I told everybody, this is what's happening. Everybody that was on my list, they knew what was happening. At the end of the 30 days, I made more sales. I made more affiliate money and more replies in my inbox. Yeah, there were more at bats, sure, but everything for the better. And so I was like, okay, let's just keep going with this. And, sure, there are days where the blank page stares me right back in the face. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about today, right? But what I always think about myself is like, what happened yesterday? Or what happened last week? Or what happened with a client? Or what happened with my kids? Like I bring my kids into my emails all the time. And I just think about that and then like, okay, well, my kids are young. They're 6 and 4. So it's like, yeah, I could talk about that. Like they're chaotic, they're running around, they're messy, they're kids, right? They're inquisitive, right? So it lends itself to also email marketing and online businesses and stuff. So I have this little cheat sheet that I kind of got written down here that basically says 5 things. If I got a blank page and I don't know what I'm talking about, right, that day. Answer a question is one. Share what I've done is another one. Ask a question is a third. Intro to an advanced aspect. And the final one is share other people's content. So if I'm completely have no idea what to do, I pick up this piece and I'm like, oh, you know what? Share other people's content. I saw an interesting tweet yesterday. Let me go share that. And so I share that, or I ask a question or something of that nature. So you know a lot, right? If you've been in business any length of time, you've got stories to tell. You have the content. It's just a matter of putting some framework around that content so that you could get it out the door and ship it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Do you use ChatGPT to help streamline that a little bit?
Um, Truth be told, no. Um, what's interesting is that I've kind of had this framework prior to that, ChatGPT, but I've tried to use ChatGPT, and I'm not going to say that I don't use it, but what I use it for is more for ideation, brainstorming, like as almost like a colleague. Like I want a different point of view on this topic, right? Like what kind of things are what kind of things am I going to be opposed with my point of view so that I can make the content even better. So I use it for that kind of purpose, versus like, hey, I need an email on double opt-in. I want to send this out to my list. I just find that that's not a good use of that tool, but that's just for me, that I haven't had that good. When I try to do that, it sounds very robotic and not like me. Even if I tell it to be more friendly and personal and stuff like that, it's just not doesn't come out the style that I like.
Plus, ChatGPT lies.
Well,
It
yeah, I mean,
seems like every time I ask it something, it's like making stuff up. It's like that's totally not true. Yeah.
yeah, truth be told, it was trained on us
Right.
people, right? So like, so if the content's out there, it's going to spit it back to us. So
Yeah.
that's why I also look at it from the perspective of like, ChatGPT is great for the ideation. I mean, that for me, like, so what I do nowadays is really like, I think about like the theme for the week, right? So if I talk 6 days, if I deliver an email 6 days a week, I'm like, okay, I want to talk about segmentation this week, right? So then I'll start to think about some of the YouTube videos that I have on it and some of the things that I could speak to it and things of that nature. And then I will put that into ChatGPT to see what other things it might spit out and ideas that I could talk about that I didn't think about, right? And I kind of use it as like I don't know, idea board, I guess, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term. Or if I had a colleague sitting next to me, be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? That's kind of what I use it for. And it seems pretty well at adapting to that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes good sense. Um, Jackie has a really interesting question. She says, if
Mhm.
someone clicks the your unsubscribe button and there's an option to receive less emails, but still want to stay connected, is there a sequence that can be set up for that? Or is there a sequence you'd recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do that, right? So when you sign up to my emails, depending on how you come on the list, most of the places will tell you that it's a daily email. But in the bottom, right next to the unsubscribe link, I have an option there. Hey, daily emails too much? Just come to the weekly, which is the Saturday email. It's a little bit more lengthy. It's a little bit, there's curated links in there, but yes, you get the lesson of the week, so to speak. So that's just a trigger link. It says, okay, this person's a weekly person. So all the emails that go out are daily, right? That's the recipient segment is for the daily. And then everybody that's daily and weekly will get the Saturday email. And so that goes out, right? About 8 or 9% of my list is just for the Saturday email, right? So just to give you a little bit of context is that 8 or 9% might have just unsubscribed because for whatever reason I get it. Not everybody wants a daily email. So if that's the case, I want to be able to cater to that. And as an email automation guy, if I can't cater to that, then there's some problem. So vice versa too. Like on the weekly emails, right next to the unsubscribe is, hey, you want all of the emails that you're missing out on? Click here, right? And so you go back into the daily as well.
Is there some sort of well, obviously, to do a lot of these things, watch someone who fills out a step but doesn't complete the step, um, to enter into a campaign, things like that. Are there tools or software that you think are really easy to start with for the salesperson campaign to work?
Yeah, I mean, for the salesperson campaign to work, you kind of have to have an email platform, right? Like that's the premise of it, right? So I like to use ConvertKit. That's simple, it's effective, it's fast, and most importantly, which in what I use email platforms for, is to deliver an email, right? I'm not looking for all the bells and whistles of it. Like I need you to deliver the email and consistently ConvertKit's deliverability reports on a month-to-month basis. They're either number one or number two in the big, market of the big ESPs, right? The Infusionsoft, the Active Campaigns, and Mailchimps, and so on and so forth. So I use ConvertKit because those are the emails that are going to get delivered. And so for me, that's what I suggest to go with. Now, other people like other platforms, and that's fine too. I've used just about every single one out there. um, but as far as like storing information based, like if they're filling out a form on your website and they like a contact form and you have several form fields and that sort of thing, you start to get into this gray area. If they don't click that button, is it really consent? The EU and certain states, and especially Canada, you have to be clear about all of that opt-in, that consent. And truth be told, the US will follow suit, just like Canada and the EU as well. There's already bills in the federal government for that to happen. So, yeah, I mean, you were talking about Google before, and like, third-party cookies and all of those other things that are happening now, like privacy matters now. So you have to be really like a good citizen of the web. Not to say that there aren't tools that store that information as somebody's filling stuff out. Yeah, you can have that, but then, and you show, like if you take that information and you show up in their inbox without their permission, what's that perception of the business too? So what I encourage people to do is use less form fields: name, email address, button. That's it. Get everything else after, right? Like size of company, website, all of phone number, like you could get all of that later. Just get the email address first, right? Even if you just want to collect the email address, do that. And ConvertKit's forms are nicely designed. You could do that. They have landing pages as well. I mean, it's super easy to put together. So I don't know. It's not a pitch for ConvertKit, but it's my experience that ConvertKit will help you get going pretty quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So much of this process of sending emails is iterating, testing, seeing what works. You've made some suggestions like, your list really responds to text links better than like maybe a big button or something like that. What kind of metrics are you using to judge effectiveness on these kind of iterations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I look at when I do my review process of any sequence or any email, I look at two things: how many eyeballs looked at it and how many converted. Now, that conversion could be different. Doesn't necessarily mean a monetary value or anything like that. It could be like my latest video went up. I want to see how many people clicked over to it, right? I look at a high level that way. Then I look at what are the details, right? So open rate is a fuzzy metric, and I'm not wearing the t-shirt. I should have wore the t-shirt, but open rate is a fuzzy metric, right? It lies, especially nowadays. iOS really, and Apple Mail and all that stuff, they kind of put the kibosh on open rates. But click rates are still trackable. Your sales, your bookings, your thing, whatever your call to action is trackable. Google Analytics is trackable. So when you send an email, I start to look at questions that I want answered. One, how many people converted? How many took the action that I wanted them to take? Okay. If that number is good for me, and you start to just learn your own baselines over time, if that number is good for me, great. Then I go to the next question. Okay, well, what was my open rate? Like, okay, if it's 45%, great. All right, that's fine. That's on par. But if it was 35%, why? What was about the what about the subject line didn't work, right? And then I basically look for the fall off, right? I look at where the thing that I'm trying to measure, the metric that I'm trying to measure didn't at least meet the baseline, right? So when I start to test things like text links versus buttons, I will do like a 50-50 split. I will take my list and I'll say, okay, half of you are getting buttons, half of you are getting text links, same content, same sequence, subject line, same everything else, but the button and the text link is different, and I can look at it. And if I see a big enough disparity between the two, I will run the test again, and again a 50-50 split. So not saying that the same people, they're going to be overlaps, right? So I'm not doing the exact same 50-50 split again. It's a mix again. Really just put them in the jar and mix them up and throw it out there again. So I want to see if that pattern still exists. And if that pattern exists, then I've learned something about my list. And so that's for me where I start to really look at the analytics from a perspective of giving me the answer that I'm looking for, right? Is there a fall off? How do I improve the fall off? Or what am I testing? What am I trying to learn about my list so that I can better educate myself so that when I do want them to take action, should I be putting a button or should I be putting a text link? I test things all the time. I call my list a sandbox, and I apologize, David. You're on my list, so you're part of that sandbox. But I test that really because it's like my build in public. Like I like you said, I walk the walk. So when I share stats, where I share things like that, I want to know that this is true, and I don't want to just regurgitate somebody else's learnings. I want to see what I can do too. So for me, yeah, it's super important to try to figure out, you know, what resonates best with your list. Because, yeah, I mean, Amazon does tons of testing. Google does tons of testing. They have the data to do it. But your email list, you don't need, hundreds of thousands of eyeballs. If you have 500 people on your list or 150 people on your list, that's 150 captive audience, members that you can learn something from. And why not go ahead and try?
Exactly. That's awesome. Thank you so much for all your time, Jason. I put the links
Yeah,
to a
absolutely.
couple of things so people can keep in touch with you and check out some
Awesome.
of the things that you might be able to help them with in the chat. I'll send that as a follow-up email when I post this on YouTube so you can all reference this, because I know there's slides I want to go back to myself here and improve. And so, we're glad that you're all able to join us today. This is we call the fifth Wednesday meetup, because every week we, as the Curious Ants group, meet to kind of have a brainstorming session where we kind of bring our SEO and analytics and web marketing questions together. That's all from members of Curious Ants. And every fifth week of the month, we open it up to the public and bring a guest speaker like Jason. So check out Curious Ants if you're interested in learning SEO, whether you need to provide it for your clients or work on it for your own website. We'd love to have you. You can sign up for Curious Ants and they give you access to all the processes I use for all my main clients. And you can follow those yourself and start offering it to your clients too. So hope to see you there. But thank you all for coming today. It was so glad to have you all here to turn out. And I hope you'll keep in touch. Have a great time today. See ya. Bye.